in our society, the people who make the dumbest decisions and have the dumbest ideas are the people with the highest IQs. For example, you're not going to get a carpenter to tell you that a man can become a woman. You're not going to have some plumber telling you that you're misgendering and microaggressing them. It's not going to happen.
Right, but that's the difference between the intellectual and the everyday man. The everyday man is in life. He's doing things in life.
The movies have given us many dark visions of the future. When people contemplate the madness of our time, the first thing they talk about is idiocracy.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of America! President Camacho!
We don't have dancing like that. That's not what we have right now.
The guy can actually walk onto the stage without falling, and he can string a sentence together. So that's not exactly what we have right now in our leadership, is it?
No, not at all.
I'm pretty sure what's killing the crops is this Brondo stuff.
The Brondo's got what plants crave. It's got electrolytes.
So wait a minute. What you're saying is that you want us to put water on the crops.
Yes.
Water. Like out the toilet?
Is salt good or bad for plants is my question.
Well, it's really bad for plants, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. I mean, we've done a lot of stupid things in our society, but not quite that now, have we?
Where's your tattoo? Why come you don't have a tattoo? God. You're not understandable, are you?
Yeah, we're not that dumb yet. We're getting there. We're definitely getting there.
But we got to cut Idiocracy some slack in that the movie takes place 500 years in the future. And, well, we've only been, 20 years since Idiocracy? So the predictions aren't that far off.
At the World's Fair back, what was it, 1901 or something, or 1899, I don't remember, and people talking about self-cleaning houses and flying cars before, like everybody had a flying machine of some sort, like all these types of things, right? And it's like none of them came to pass.
Well, I think it was Yogi Berra who said that predictions are hard, especially about the future. Predictions weren't that hard for one person in the 1990s. You know who that was? This guy. If there's one thing that Idiocracy gets right, it's that the leadership, right? President Camacho, for example, was a complete drooling moron, just like the people who are leading our countries are complete drooling morons.
Over $1.3 billion.
But the thing it gets wrong is that among the regular people, there's still plenty of good, solid common sense. And people who haven't been brainwashed in graduate school still have retained, some good sense. But what this episode of Jerry Springer's from August 11th of 1997 shows is that the degenerates that went on to Jerry Springer's show, it's their ideas that are now dominating our elite. And it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely incredible just how much of what you see on the Jerry Springer show.
In Idiocracy, doesn't it start off about, whether or not to have kids or not? And so intelligent couples were saying, oh, we're going to wait until the time is right. Whereas idiots are popping out babies like, Pop-Tarts. And it was just like, oh, well, that's why they're dumbing down society.
Right. But in our society, the people who make the dumbest decisions and have the dumbest ideas are the people with the highest IQs. For example, you're not going to get a carpenter to tell you that a man can become a woman. You're not going to have some plumber telling you that you're misgendering and microaggressing them. It's not going to happen.
Right, but that's the difference between the intellectual and the everyday man. The everyday man is in life. He's doing things in life. He's part of the world. Like we had a thing, a couple episodes ago. We were talking to me about modern day, law versus like how we had the common law for like 1,000 years. Like there's an understanding of how people are supposed to act when you live in society. If you're being in society, friends, co-workers, this, that, whatever, like you're connected to all these people, there's a village that's surrounding you. The intellectuals only surround themselves with other people who are in their own village, like in their own head or something.
You'd associate the Jerry Springer Show with a bunch of degenerates getting on there, and they describe the romantic betrayals they had of each other. Then all the parties that gets together, they start shouting and screaming and cursing, and then they have a good, strong fist fight until it gets broken up. And that's what your impression is of the Jerry Springer Show. But again, on August 11th of 1997, they had a vision of the future.
First, let's meet the founders, Reverend Chris Carter, Pastor Kim, and Vermin X.
The Church of Euthanasia has 4 pillars of their faith. What are they? Well, we'll get to them later. But before we get to that, we're going to show you how this one episode of Springer predicted so much else about our time. First of all, this entire movement is based on environmental hysteria.
Has to do with environmentalism?
Yes, it does, and we're going to explain it in great detail.
This isn't recycling cans. You're talking about suicide.
They say the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket unless we make some absolutely radical changes. Never having babies again.
Right. So we become China now. And that's what I'm hearing. So it's like, oh, let's be like China. No, come on.
Well, they say the issue is never the issue. The issue is power, and I suspect that is actually the case. And look here, the Weather Channel of all places, is telling us to save the world, have fewer babies, just like the Church of Euthanasia. It's not just that. They also, for some reason, are radically opposed to air conditioning.
I think is degrading. I think humans being packed into buses and trains.
She is stunning and brave.
And being forced to go to jobs where they have to perform the same repetitive motions over and over again, day after day, where their freedom of movement is restricted, where they're forced to breathe conditioned air. I think that is degrading.
We are probably one of the richest countries ever in the history of mankind, which gives us, with the technological advances, a certain level of comfort. Why should we not take advantage of it if we can find a healthy, clean, productive way of doing it?
Well, remember, the issue is power. And a lot of the people who want to make the rules, they won't be special if all the people have the same luxuries that they do. And if they can have luxuries that we can't have, they'll be a lot happier and they'll feel a lot more high status and special. Vox magazine here is criticizing the use of air conditioning. Here's what they said. It's like, we haven't really solved this. What's healthy? How much ventilation is healthy? Should public spaces like schools be cooled all the time? And of course, they play the racism card a few times, but again, the opposition to air conditioning it's like Jerry Springer was a prophet. Of course, the Church of Euthanasia also has their radical opposition to eating meat. For example, there's smarty pantses who want to rule us, want us to eat bugs. The Attorney General of New York is now suing some meat processor for understating the carbon impact of meat or whatever nonsense she's going for.
Was there some Democrat politician who was talking about cow farts a couple of years ago?
AOC, yes.
I will say this. There was a guy on Shark Tank once who had like protein bars made out of crickets. And they turned
they want us to eat bugs, yes.
Right. I mean, listen, it's not there's a legitimate way to say, okay, you can eat bugs, but I'm also ill. I'm just not going.
I will not eat bugs. I will not eat bugs once, ever. I will not do that. Period. I don't care what my betters say.
Yeah. You believe in a chauvinistic world where man is the only person who is allowed to determine life and death. God made all the creatures on the earth to express his joy.
how do you listen to a man who's holding up a cross, which is mocking Christianity, especially Catholicism, in the way he represented by having a rubber chicken instead of Jesus up there? I mean, I really, like, what is your intention is to shock, I get it, but I'm not Catholic, I'm not even a Christian, and yet I'm like offended by that for my Christian friends. Like,
it's gone mainstream. Look at what happened with in that Dodgers game where they had this Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence who dressed up as nuns and they're men to go and mock the Catholic faith. So what was once confined to the Jerry Springer show has gone mainstream. It's absolutely insane how much he's predicted. And the transgenderism we're seeing today, well, guess what? It's on there too.
That's right. This is about female empowerment. This is about...
You're a man too, remember?
Huzzah! Okay.
She's a stunning, beautiful woman.
I'm a man chicken. I'm going to tell you what to do. Okay?
You're a man?
Sure I am. You better believe it. I'm transgender.
Not only is that person a transgender, but Jerry Springer is advertising for more for his next episode. Watch this.
Are you a man who lives as a woman or a woman who lives as a man? If so, please call 1-800-96-JERRY and tell us about it.
He even predicted body positivity.
That she can get any man she wants.
I've been scoping Tide all morning long.
They say you're too fat to dress like that.
You accent your best asset. This is mine.
Tomorrow on Springer.
So, yes, so Jerry Springer's the prophet. He's the Notre Dame of our time.
Well, it's just that every degenerate idea that was like in like the freak show that Jerry Springer was is now a mainstream elite idea. It's incredible. He didn't like to miss any of them now, did he? Now, here's some footage from one of the protests that was led by this Church of Euthanasia. And I want you to notice something about one of the signs they're carrying here.
It is God's will that these women have.
And that sign was kind of disturbing there. Pedophile priests for life, it says. Nowadays, we have people at universities talking about how pedophiles are now minor attracted people.
Minor attracted person, or MAP, in the title and throughout the book for multiple reasons. First of all, because I think it's important to use terminology for groups that members of that group want others to use for them. And MAP advocacy groups like Before You Act have advocated for use of the term MAP. They've advocated for it primarily because it's less stigmatizing than other terms like pedophile.
This is one of the more awful things that was on Jerry Springer that is now being mainstreamed by our intellectual elite.
Minor attracted people.
That's their term for it.
It is truly scary how accurate this shit has become. I'm blown away when I realize that, like, the things that we used to look down upon are now becoming the things the things that are just commonplace, unfortunately, in this country of ours.
And that brings us to the 4 pillars of the Church of Euthanasia.
Give me 4 things that you believe in. What are the basic tenets of your philosophy?
We're gonna get to the 4 pillars of the Church of Euthanasia. You already know what they are. They're suicide, abortion, cannibalism, and sodomy.
Wait a sec. Say that again.
Suicide, abortion, cannibalism, and sodomy. That's right.
And their most important tenet is not to procreate. We have an entire movement of dinks in this country. Dual income, no kids.
We're dinks. We go to Trader Joe's and workout classes on the weekends.
We're dinks. We get into snobby hobbies like skiing and golfing.
We're dinks. We can go to Florida on a whim.
We're dinks. We're already planning our European vacation next year.
Dinks.
They're able to afford so much more luxuries because they don't have to pay for children. The first of the 4 pillars is abortion. And back in the 1990s, the compromise we had on abortion was that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. Here's Bill Clinton.
Our vision should be of an America where abortion is safe and legal, but rare.
That's not how it is anymore. Here is the new view on abortion. Oh, and notice, again, that they're ironically subverting Christianity by mocking it, using their abortion sacrament in a church. again, this is exactly what was going on the Jerry Springer show. Oh. And who can forget Michelle Wolf's salute to abortion? You have to remember that we live in a country where the quote-unquote right to abortion is so precious that we can't leave it to voters. We can't leave it to the states. We can only impose it from above, and it's one of those things that has to be imposed from above, even though the Constitution says not one single thing on it. The next of their 4 pillars is sodomy.
Now it's, we have a whole month dedicated to it. We get all these parades and everybody dancing around in the cute little outfits.
And we have dozens and dozens of flags.
Yes, like everywhere. And everything's got rainbows on it nowadays. And
we have romantic comedies that are same-sex couples getting together instead of...
that doesn't bother me.
Whether it bothers you or not, it was predicted accurately by this Jerry Springer.
So it's like you can't even tell a joke anymore without getting some feedback. Like, I got a great one for you. Why is The Rock the only man in the world who can take a lesbian and make her straight? Because Rock always beats scissors.
Just trying to paper over the issue now, aren't you?
A little bit.
What is actually kind of scary is that we now have children's books hidden in the school libraries so that librarians can give them to children who are easily influenced, depicting all sorts of pornographic scenes of gay sex, for example. Or that children are being taken to pride parades and our intellectual betters are telling us that we should expose our children to kink. I'm telling you, Jerry Springer was completely profitable.
Jerry Springer is right. Like, there's not a question. But I don't understand that if your job is to teach me history, English, science, math, this type of stuff, I don't understand how all this comes in. That should be between the parents and the children. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, remember, this is
it though? How is it? I'm just blown away that how much Jerry Springer is the Notre Dame of the 90s.
Well, it's just that the 4 pillars of the Church of Euthanasia have begun to become the 4 pillars of our intellectual elites. Another one, suicide.
What you said, I'm quoting you.
Okay,
this is Reverend.
Jerry,
this is what you said on the air. You said this in L.A. in a radio address, and I'm quoting. If you are depressed or ill or feel burdened by today's world problems, let me suggest a way to give your life new meaning. Kill yourself. Do it now. If you have a gun, razor, whatever. You're telling me, okay, you're telling me that's going to make the...
Jerry, we're talking about an all-out industrial assault on the planet.
How does that give your life new meaning if you take your life?
Okay.
Now, you might not think this is one of the 4 pillars of our intellectual elite, but say in the Netherlands, in Sweden, doctor-assisted suicide has become extremely common. And in Canada, if somebody has gotten depression or disease or whatever, a lot of times they're referred or suggested that they have physician-assisted suicide.
I mean, like 20 years ago, didn't Oregon become like a state for euthanization? The rate of suicide is on the rise. It's not going down. It's going up higher. So I hear them. Like, again, back to Notre Dame of the 90s. Like, the things he's talking about is blowing my mind here.
In Switzerland, they invented a sarcopod. And
what?
A sarcopod. It's a device where someone sits in it and it deprives them of the oxygen they need, and they can peacefully pass away. Back in the 1990s, Jack Kevorkian, remember him?
Yeah, the Doctor of Death or something like that.
Yes, he was put on trial for being the physician who did the assisting in the physician-assisted suicide. And not anymore. Now it's state law in many, many states.
Suicide is one of those things that just passes on the pain to all those who love that person. In, what was it, 1970, 71, somewhere around there, the movie MASH came out. The title of the theme song is "Suicide is Painless," and it was talking about how wrong and bad suicide is, but it did it in a way like, it's that we don't have the intelligence to understand anymore. We really don't. And I get the point of the dumbing down of society, and I get the point about this church. And I'm seeing Jerry Springer again. Notre Dame is of the 90s. That's his new nickname. This whole thing is actually blowing my mind to see how the undercurrents of all this has just flowed.
Right, but remember, this has only really affected our intellectual betters. If you ask if you ask a regular person, a normal person, about any of these things, you're going to get opinions that were quite similar to what they were in the 1990s. But if you ask somebody who's an ethicist teaching ethics in a college or for a major newspaper, you're going to get a position on these things that is very, very close to.
I mean,
preach vegetarianism.
That's what we're doing.
No, you're suggesting that it's also okay, they are suggesting, that it's also okay for humans to eat human flesh. That's stupid.
And the last pillar of the Church of Euthanasia, the fourth pillar, is cannibalism. Now, I haven't seen human meat being sold anywhere, but our intellectual betters actually have been trying to normalize this for quite some time. The reason we did this episode is from an article we recently saw in New Scientist magazine, and here's what they said. Ethically, cannibalism poses fewer issues than you might imagine. If a body can be bequeathed with consent to medical science, why can't it be left to feed the hungry? Our aversion has been explained in various ways. Perhaps it is down to the fact that in Western religious traditions, bodies are seen as the seat of the soul and have a whiff of the sacred. Or maybe it's culturally ingrained, with roots in early modern colonialism, when racist stereotypes of the cannibal were concocted to justify subjugation. These came to represent other to Western societies, and revulsion towards cannibalism became a tenet of their moral conscience. That's what they're now putting into respected or once respected journals these days.
No. Just no. Like there's so many things to say just no. Like, okay, racist? No. I'm not even going to touch that one because it's just not. It's just gross. You don't eat a human being.
Yeah, you don't overthink this, because if you overthink this, you're going to be like the zoologist whose book was reviewed on NPR, National Public Radio. Here's what he said. I am taking things that seem grotesque and misunderstood and horrify people by putting it through the eyes of a zoologist, he said. And what does a zoologist see exactly? He sees the perfect natural sense of cannibalism, the evolutionary biology of eating one's own kind, and oddly, the wonder of it all.
Just no. Just stop. Like, we don't even need to respond. Like, you've gone so far off the deep end. Just no.
We have to respond, because if we don't respond, they get the playing field to themselves. And you know something? If they get to the playing field themselves, that's how these ideas form. Because in the echo chamber of academia, they don't have people like us, people with common sense, telling them that they're a bunch of freaking nutters. This is not just in theory, right? It's not just people writing articles about cannibalism. CNN correspondent Reza Aslan, he actually committed cannibalism, right? Here he is eating some human brains. So as far as I'm concerned, if you've committed cannibalism once, that makes you a cannibal.
There's just certain things that are no. And when we understand that, like, when you try and justify pedophilia, or you're justifying cannibalism, or you're justifying something that will just be so destructive, it's just shut up. There are plenty of people who found amazing things and did a lot of good stuff to raise up society. You don't have to just sell crappy ideas. You can find an actual good idea and sell that.
And now for our final thought. Jerry Springer's show has long been perceived as a lowbrow freak show that exhibited the worst of low-class misbehavior. But that's not really the case. An intellectual is a marketer of ideas. The orthodoxy ruling today's market is queer theory, which doesn't just want to destroy some rules, norms, or social conventions about what is normal. Queer theory wants to abolish the legitimacy of social normativity itself. As a result, in their quest to find ideas that are ever more shocking, intellectuals will begin to find their ideas in places like the Jerry Springer Show. Hence, the growing support of truly awful ideas, like those of the Church of Euthanasia. If we don't answer them now, the slope will get ever more slippery. Now, stripped of the glitz and glamour of Ivy League degrees and the obscure vocabulary of their writings, we can see the intellectuals for what they are: con artists. Those who still believe the intellectuals are like Jerry's television audience, credulous enough to believe what they're being sold. In Springer's case, it's a psychic, hawking phone consultations. In our case, it's critical theory and queer theory. Really, these academics are no better than the degenerates that crossed Jerry Springer's stage. Till next time, take care of yourself and each other.